Welcome to the Asset Coach and Tax Strategist YouTube channel. If you're a subscriber, thanks so much for subscribing. If you're a first-time viewer, thank you for spending your time here with us. If you like our content, please give us a thumbs up. For you new folks, Asset Coach Tax Strategist YouTube channel is based on the book Economic Termites. This is a book that I wrote a few years ago talking about taxes, inflation, time, laws, and regulations. Also, I wrote a second book called Farming Assets. Those two books is really what this whole channel is about, addressing those situations and how they affect you and I in our ability to grow our wealth. So as an asset coach and tax strategist, my name is Robert Wolf. I am the CEO and founder of Terra Firma Business and Financial Consultants and its affiliates. We have a bunch of companies that we've built out this ecosystem surrounding the basis of what we talk about on this YouTube channel. So if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. We drop episodes every Thursday. Again, if you are, thanks so much. And let's get into this next episode. Okay, we're going to talk about California. If you've been watching me or following me for any period of time, you know I'm originally from California. Moved there in 1984 when I was 9. The Summer Olympics was kind of the big event that was occurring that made me remember that we're moving to California from Arizona. We lived there, ended up going to, was Sunland, California, went to Montebello, and then ended up in Buena Park. And then from Buena Park ended in Orange. And then that's where we ended up living last before we moved here to Texas, which was the end of 2020. So we'll be celebrating our fifth year here on the December 30th of hitting Texas. So amazing how fast time goes by. But 2020, there's a lot of reasons why people left, and we left for the politics. We left because the cost of living was ridiculous. We left because we didn't see a great opportunity to be able to put ourselves in a position to where we could afford a house, to where we could afford a living, but more importantly, and also to think that our kids would be able to survive there afterwards, right? Sure, we may be able to afford a house or live there in the cost of living, but could our kids? We didn't think so. So that way we could be in a position to where we could be around our kids wherever they moved in the country. And this is where we ended up settling. We looked at a few different places, and this is North Texas is where we ended up settling, like a lot of people did. So the reason why I bring this up is that, you know, I find this conversation about California somewhat ironic, and what I mean by this is that they have the highest gas prices outside of Hawaii. They have in the United States. They have the highest income taxes. Okay, they have the highest unemployment because of the highest minimum wage. Okay, they've driven people out of work, but you just hold your horses there for right now, okay? They continue to make decisions, and over the years, so I kind of see like Gavin Newsom right now in California is kind of like a high school prom queen. She's now pushing 50. She still thinks she's a high school prom queen. Out of high school, she married a wealthy business owner, and today she feels like she's successful because she married a wealthy business owner, and she takes credit for this wealth and this success. This is Gavin Newsom. But the problem is that what has California done consistently over the decades? They were the number one in aerospace. Drove aerospace out. They were number one in manufacturing, drove manufacturing out. They were number one in agriculture, drove agriculture out. Go drive the 5 freeway in Middle California and you'll see what I mean by the California Dust Bowl. Entertainment. Oh, Bob, that's Hollywood. How many of movies and TV series and shows do you watch that are filmed in Georgia now, or Canada, or now in Texas? Do you realize that Hollywood is trying to create a Hollywood in Texas? Okay. A lot of big YouTubers and podcasters left California to Texas. Why? Because everybody loves the landscape here in Texas. We love flatland. To see a mountain, oh my God. It just makes me want to throw up to look at a mountain again. No. California's weather's amazing. You go to San Diego area, it's like the best weather ever. Anywhere. It's amazing. It has to do with the politics. It has to do with the House of We've never been more at peace and felt comfortable where we're at here than when we were in Orange. Do we miss family and friends? Horribly. Horribly. A lot of times it causes us to start choking up. We didn't want to leave. We had to leave. This was our feeling, our opinion. So when I hear that California is the fourth largest economy in the world, and Gavin Newsom's up there pounding his chest, makes me want to pause and look at, you know what California could have been? California could have been the second largest economy in the world, behind the United States, if they did not drive out all these other areas. But these cuckoos and loonies have caused a lot of that to go out. And so let's look at today, what would happen if more businesses left? What would happen to California in their ranking, right? They're still the most populated state, but what's happening to that? That's dropping, right? We've seen a drop over the last 5 years, significantly. In a lot of the blue states that are ran, a lot of those, and some red states where there's not a lot of work. So like Mississippi and Alabama, certain parts of Alabama, Louisiana, those are red states, but people are moving out of those because of jobs, opportunities, right? So you'll see Florida getting a lot, Tennessee getting a lot, Texas getting a lot of those transients. Okay. And we're one of those, right? We left California and things haven't been better. Again, miss family and friends dearly. Okay. But let's walk through what this looks like from the United States, from the, not the United States, from California. California thinks it's the United States. So what I did was something very simple. Okay. And you can go do this. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you exactly what I did. Okay. And I use ChatGPT. And the reason why I do this is I didn't want my bias to come through. Okay. Because I'm angry at California. I'm angry at the decisions that they've made over the years. Absolutely. But what I also understand is I also recognize that nothing's going to change. And we got to look at this. So so this is my prompt. What is California's top revenue companies and industries that's making them fourth largest economy in the world? That was my prompt. Okay. And so here it is. In 2024, California's economy reached a nominal GDP of $4.1 trillion, placing it, if it were a country, the fourth largest economy in the world, right? That's what we've heard, ahead of Japan and Germany. The state accounts for roughly 1 in 7 total U.S. GDP, making it the largest U.S. subnational economy by far. Okay, it's ahead of Texas, it's ahead of Florida, it's ahead of New York. Those are the three that are trailing behind California. A major reason for this strength is California is home to more large corporations than any other state as of 2025. Well, is that because all of a sudden they're just these great startups and they just started? No, these are companies that evolved over a period of time. Again, what is Newsom? Prom queen, in her 50s, who married a successful business owner and thinks that her success is in business. It has 58 companies in the Fortune 500 list, the most in any other state, right? That doesn't happen overnight. That happens over a period of time, okay? Now, also, according to recent economic breakdowns, California's leading sectors by contribution to the GDP are information technology, media. No duh, right? $538 billion. Real estate development, property services, rental, commercial development with $460 billion. What would happen if some of these companies left the state? What would happen to the real estate? It'd go down, right? One of the things that actually has supported California is China. And I don't mean that as like the black helicopter, meaning that wealthy people in China need to get their money out of China. And so they can't just put it into a bank in these states. So what they do is they buy physical property. So what happens is that if you own a house in California, you get a cash payer. More likely that's somebody from China trying to get their assets, their cash out of China and into actual physical property. And this is what helps real estate in California. Professional services, including consulting, finance, business, legal services, about 391 billion. And then healthcare, life sciences, manufacturing, agriculture, and food, entertainment, retail. All of these, by the way, used to be at the top, but no longer are. Okay, so let's look at this. All right. Additionally, demographics and employment structure matters. The largest employer overall in California is the government. Let me repeat that. The largest employer overall in California is the government. But by employment, the biggest sector is healthcare, retail trade, and professional services. All that rely on population. Population starts going down, these start going down. Information technology doesn't matter. They could lose everybody in this state and still going to do well. Real estate affects population, affects that. Professional services, population affects that. You get the idea here. Okay. And so what major companies are headquartered in California? Well, Apple, Nvidia, Alphabet, right? These are some of the most well-valued companies in the world are in California. Okay. These major firms have hundreds of more large, mid-sized, small firms that are connected to these companies. That's what made Silicon Valley what it is, right? The 70s is what started into the 80s is what started Silicon Valley and in Stanford and some of the things that Stanford University has done to encourage this growth of industry in Silicon Valley is definitely a big factor. Why that makes California a global leader? Well, we know why that is. Okay, the diversification and that sort of stuff. So the population workforce size is nearly 40 million people. Okay, now I'm curious to see what this is going to be here at the end of 25, since there's been a lot of changes in effect due to immigration. And what that will entail and look like. Okay. So it asked me, hey, would you like me to pull the top 20 companies by revenue and industry in California? I said, yeah, please pull that. And said, okay. And here we go. The top 20 California companies by revenue: Apple, it's Nvidia, Alphabet, Broadcom, Meta Platforms, Facebook, Wells Fargo, Cisco, Salesforce, Intel, Qualcomm, Walt Disney, Amgen, Applied Materials, Lam Research, Uber Technologies, Meta Platforms, Intuitive Surgical, Prologis, eBay, and Public Storage. Okay, this is the ranking. Okay, so there's a lot of tech companies in here, right? Adobe, I don't know if I said Adobe, right? So there's a lot of tech companies in here. None of them have to be in California. If any one of these left California, what would that do to it, right? Because Disney's here, it still puts California on the entertainment's list of top entertainment areas. I'd have to disagree with this. I think all of this is going to start exiting if things continue in California the way they've gone. I think there's going to be a mass corporate exodus. I really do. Especially since some of these other states will give significant incentives for companies like this to take their economies and their economics to those states. Okay, so it's an important thing to look at. All right, so what this list reveals: industry, breadth, economic power, technology, and semiconductor companies like Apple and all these companies. They power huge shares of the economic output. Duh, we know that significantly, right? Now, energy is a big issue, right? So all of these companies, technology, the industry requires energy. And what is the thing that California has driven out, right? Is energy, the energy industry. There's no more, Refineries are gone. There's no drilling. There's no nuclear. Just everything has to go on the power grid. All electric lines, and yet they can't sustain that either. So, but what powers that? What powers the power? Healthcare, biotech, and medical devices. Okay, entertainment. Walt Disney is a main part of California's economy. Financial services, real estate, entities such as Wells Fargo, Prologis, Public Storage, other non-tech firms also beyond Silicon Valley, right? If you go to Orange County, LA County, San Diego County, Riverside County, significant industry in each of those areas. Consumer services, internet, transportation, Uber, eBay, all focused in this area. Okay. Why is this not a perfect 20 revenue? Well, that's a good question. Many large California-based companies are private. So a lot of the full revenues aren't publicly disclosed. So the list mixes market cap and revenue, but they're all public companies, right? Private companies don't have to indicate that stuff. Okay. So top 50 companies by revenue. Sure, great, thanks. What would happen? So my next thing would be, great, what would happen if California's ranking if 5 of those companies were to move their headquarters to another state? So, okay, so it says California's GDP based on economic activity happens inside the state, not where a company is legally headquartered. So if Apple, Nvidia, Alphabet, Meta, or Disney moved their headquarters, California would not instantly lose all their revenue because their employees and offices and all that kind of stuff would still operate there in California. Okay. The GDP measures production inside the state, not where the corporation paperwork is filed. But there would be a short-term loss due to the people that would leave. California would still remain the 4th largest economy in the world. But what would happen if to lost headquarters? So the medium term, headquarters do contribute significantly in several ways. High income executive jobs leave, business travel and services contracts, corporate taxes change, attraction of venture capital startups, and influence over local suppliers and partnerships. Those things all are affected by that stuff. Anywhere from 5 to 15 billion in direct annual economic activities, 20 to 50 billion in indirect. So still would not knock California out of 4th place, but the cracks would start appearing. So long-term structural impact. This is where things get now serious. California's global position depends heavily on innovation. So tech and AI, semiconductors, cloud computing, entertainment, and biotech. If headquarters relocate and companies begin shifting, which is what really starts happening, R&D labs, hiring, new investment, manufacturing, data centers, all that stuff starts moving, that's when the GDP would start to begin to erode. Okay. This is what happened to aerospace. This is what happened to agriculture. This is what happened to manufacturing. And we're seeing this in entertainment right now. Is more and more is leaving California in entertainment. Okay. In the early 2000s, when workers' comp rates were so significantly high, late 1990s, early 2000s, what ended up happening was there was a lot of manufacturing in California, and worker comp rates were out of this roof. So what happened was a lot of those small manufacturing companies went across the state. So they went into Arizona, went into southern part of Oregon, went into Idaho, went into Nevada, Reno area, Vegas. And those population growth, also Colorado, those population growth skyrocketed. Okay. So this is where I think things are going to start happening. If California keeps going down this pathway, it's going to force some of these companies to have to do these things. And the reason being is that to live in California is expensive. And so what's going to happen is these companies are going to have to compensate more and more people at a greater amount. That inflationary cost taxes everything in California is going to drive payroll to being higher. And all these companies, the majority of these public companies, they're all public. So they all have to deal with shareholders. They're hiding a lot of this stuff with share buyback programs since 2008, when interest rates is pretty much zero. They were able to borrow money at no cost, and they started buyback programs and buying back shares. And that's what's been able to help them float. Yes, they're doing an amazing job in revenue and all this kind of stuff, and innovation and buying smaller companies and innovating and growing, that sort of stuff. Absolutely. Okay. I'm not saying that's not happening, but the costs associated with the underground stuff is going to increase their need to decide on what they're going to do long term. So a possible long term. Okay. So let's take a look at this. 10 years. GDP reduction of 2 to 5% or 80 to 200 billion. Risk of falling behind Germany and Japan in global ranking, if assuming all is the same, right? And then these couple things start happening. Venture capital funding may migrate. Startups gravitate to the new tech hubs. So in Austin, a lot of stuff's happening in Austin, and other states as well, that are trying to create these tech hubs. Okay. Loss of economic prestige and network effect. In the long run, California could drop from 4 to 5 or even 6 globally, which still doesn't, that's still pretty damn good. To be 5 or 6 in the world, that's still pretty damn good, right? Not saying that at all. But it kind of depends on where those companies go, what happens in the future growth, and what other areas. So this kind of stuff could cause real estate to go down, right? It could cause unemployment to go up. Tax revenue will go down, right? We saw this with California making the decision of a mileage use tax, because they were trying to force everyone to electric vehicles. And so people stopped buying gas. And the gas tax, the reason why their gas prices are so high is taxes. So their gas taxes revenue was going down. And so California was in a deficit, right? So these decisions have effects that a lot of times they don't see the big picture of when these things occur. Right now they're in their heyday. They're making it rain. They're living it up. But this does have a significant effect in the long run as to the future health. And here's the thing, future innovation. Forget what's already in existence. The opportunity cost of future innovation. So a lot of crypto could have been developed in Silicon. The crypto industry could have, because that's where technology is. But because of California, Austin ends up being a huge crypto economy and brain trust and innovation in Austin. And there is argument that crypto blockchain from a technology is the future. I'm not saying cryptocurrency. I mean crypto from a perspective of the blockchain and the technology itself. Okay, can transform the technology industry, which is what's starting to occur. Okay, and so what's that going to look like in the future? I have no idea, right? But what's going to start happening is that the innovation is going to start leaving the state. That's going to affect professional services. It's going to affect real estate. It's going to affect a lot of these things. What's going to end up happening is these smaller businesses are going to start closing up shop. They're going to move to another state, open up shop, thrive, and there. And then the economy in California is going to continue to spiral down. And when the largest employer in the state is the government, those aren't revenue generating positions. Those are expenses to the state. So the largest employer is the state, which is draining resources out of the system. Okay. And so when there's not enough people to tax anymore, when there's not enough, one of the things that Newsom talked about was, hey, we're going to tax people who leave the state. Okay. Like, you think you're going to be able to tax me that now I'm not living in California anymore? I don't think so. I moved everything I have. None of my companies are linked to California anymore. I probably won't buy a company in California. I've looked at a couple opportunities, great opportunities that made a lot of sense, but they were in California and I just didn't want to do it. The success and the revenue did not matter to me. because the infrastructure of this system there is what matters, because that's the future of that company. So that company I buy, it may be really great right now, but will it be in 5 years? Will it be in 10 years due to the decision? That's what, as an investor, that's what I'm talking about, is that I won't put any money in California. I just won't do it. So, and I really don't care about the opportunity. It just, I won't do it. New York is another one because they make it very difficult to do business there. And I just don't like the infrastructure and what that means there. Okay. Colorado, that's a bit of different story. Arizona, Nevada, even Illinois, I'm okay. Probably not Michigan. So there's a handful of states that I would just stay away from. And then there's a handful of states I'd be all in on. Okay. And that's important because you got to look at the infrastructure of what's happening and what that looks like. That, to me, that's what's important. So all this big hoopla, I think this is California's opportunity to pound their chest, right? They're playing a political game. California needs to make themselves look amazing and like that's the place to go to. They have to do that because they're hemorrhaging. And if California continues to hemorrhage, then politically, it will not be the guidepost to that political engine. And so, and that political party understands that. That's why they're trying to infiltrate other areas of the country and trying to taint local governments in other areas of the country with that same philosophy. It's just the way it is. It's like a cancer. Okay. But there's a reason why California is deteriorating. Now, there's also a reason why they innovated, right? That free spirit, that mentality of innovation and growth, it fostered that. But now it's taxing that. And I really believe that California is going to, within the next 5 years, probably change their taxing system to taxing top line revenue of companies and not profit. Because they're going to need to, because their tax revenue from you can only tax citizens so much. There's only so much that they can handle, and then they leave. They go to a different kingdom. The king's not taking care of us anymore. I'm going to go to a different kingdom and work my tail off and do everything I can for a different kingdom, but not this one. Okay. And so that's important to understand as we go through this process and understand that California is pounding their chest right now. It's a deceptive chest power. California as a state has not done this. Innovation has done this. Capitalism has done this. California is there to tax and draw as much as they can out of that. They do not encourage the innovation. Bottom line, not anymore. So, California, you are no longer a prom queen. Go make it a great day.